Liam Burt here. I see a lot of folks are posting some awesome content out there, including videos, so I believe I'm going to jump on that train, and I'll use this one as a jumping off point where I will introduce myself, BrightLander, and what we do. So with that said, what we're going to go over here is just a little bit about us, like I had mentioned, some of our areas of expertise, and then from that point on, we'll just talk about some of the different features of Salesforce as it relates and lines up with our services. And we'll also be talking about just some of the projects that we've worked on and ways in which you can structure your org if you'd like. So a little bit about us. I have about a decade of sales and marketing experience under my belt, as well as account management. And I guess you could say that I'm a seasoned salesperson turned Salesforce.com consultant. My partner, Divs, she's a very highly esteemed developer. She's won the Dreamforce Developer Competition 2 times, and she's also won 3 Salesforce Hackathon competitions. In fact, she's actually working with senior executive management at Salesforce to help them with a social program they have that they're about to launch, which is basically going to under-the-line poverty-stricken rural areas throughout India and developing service hubs to effectively help people, in those areas get out of poverty, which is a really cool project, and we're definitely super excited about it. So next, we're going to go over some of our areas of expertise. Not only have we worked with every cloud product that Salesforce has produced, we've also worked across, every industry product that they pushed out as well. So we're receiving a lot of requests at the moment for folks that are aiming to transition to Lightning, /transitioning to Lightning, and are having some problems. In fact, you might have noticed that, Salesforce has actually shut down for maintenance a couple of times because there has been glitches, as, there would be to be expected, considering, that massive migration. So with that said, we do offer training if you find yourself, needing a little bit of freshening up, if you will. We can absolutely, help you with that. Next, we're going to go over some of the services, and this is really where we're going to dig into our services. So implementations or re-implementations, simply put, if you've just procured Salesforce, or if you're looking to kind of wipe the slate clean and give it a fresh start, we can absolutely help you with either scenario. The good news is that there is so much that you can do with Salesforce. The bad news is that there is so much that you can do with Salesforce. And when you first jump on board, it can be a bit overwhelming. And we come across this, quite often. So we've actually just finished up a project. It was a great project with a growth-focused private equity fund. The firm had launched 2 funds, and they were aiming to raise $250 million. And they are, softwares for this particular, for this particular type of utility. But, a lot of folks, including them, have found more value in, using someone like us to customize their org so that they don't have to deal with these updates that these software providers might have, which can really hinder, their operations if there's an update that comes out of nowhere, even if it's just a user interface update, which kind of confuses things and people don't always know how to adjust to those. Or are prepared to adjust to those. It's enough to have to deal with the 3 different updates that Salesforce pushes out a year. And it's another thing when you have to layer on top of, some of these app updates that might not align with the new features that Salesforce is pushing out. So with that said, that's why we offer both implementation and re-implementation services. So for this particular fund, what we decided to do was just to create an internal app. I usually do that with all projects that are just implementing Salesforce because it allows you to really just cut out all of the clutter of the things that you don't need and really just zero in on the things that you need. So that's really the first step, is to develop this internal app. And then what we also did for this particular project was create a custom fundraising object, which was a place for this private equity investment fundraiser to really just manage their funds. They had 2 different funds. Thirdly, we created different record types and corresponding page layouts for either the investors, which was one of the record types, or the business partners. And those would be non-investment types of partners. So that would be like a lawyer or a consultant, or in this case, even a logistics firm. And with that said, we also, under the investor record type and page layout, we created a field so they could narrow down on all of the different types of investors. And that included endowments, family offices, foundations, fund of funds. You had your private equity, your prime brokers. There was your sovereign wealth funds. They had private pension funds, public pension funds, etc. And we also created, custom fields for things like assets under management, what the management fee was, what the carried interest rate was, what their check size was in ranges, so 1 to 5 million, 6 to 10 million, 11 to 15 million, 16 to 20 million, so on and so forth. And we'll go over, once we get to our reports and dashboards, why we decided to get that granular. It should be, pretty self-explanatory, but we'll also go over the value of having everything in that format. And more specifically, translated to their language. For example, we turned the opportunities object into investments. So just having these little tweaks to give more visibility as to what you're looking at not only makes it easier for yourself when you're using the platform, but also when you bring new people in, having that industry legal living in your org is going to make all the difference in the world. It's going to save you a ton of time, and also cutting out all of that clutter of things that you really don't need is also just going to really make things easier and a lot more efficient for you in the long run. So next is desktop and mobile setup. This is pretty straightforward. Salesforce offers apps for your phone, your iPhone, your Android, as well as your tablet, whether it's an iPad or some type of Microsoft tablet. I'm not even sure which ones are out there. But at any rate, and you can also download this on your watch if you feel it necessary to have it on your watch. And then there's also the desktop app that you can download. So we're not going to spend any more time on this particular slide. Just know that those things are available. Customizations and optimizations, we'll breeze through this really quickly. This really just goes over our process. So, first and foremost, we'll usually start things off with a discovery call. We'll be able to discuss what you'd like to do, what you're aiming to accomplish. We'll also be able to translate everything into your language. So Salesforce comes out of the box with these standard objects, which you can rename if you like, which we did in the scenario for the private equity investment fund. Also, what we'll be able to do is translate everything else into something that's more relative to your particular industry, and then we can create custom objects as well. And this is really cool because this is where you can just build exactly what you're looking for, as if you had a genie in a bottle and one of your wishes was to have the perfect, most optimized Salesforce. We'll be able to discuss what custom objects are most appropriate for your organization, as well as fields, workflow rules, validation rules, all these things to make sure that you're not uploading or creating duplicate records, all of that kind of stuff. So this is the process. We'll do that. Then we'll move into the development. Once we develop everything, we'll push it out, and next thing you know it, you'll have a completely brand new Salesforce, specifically designed for you, which makes things a lot easier. Next, so the two most common tools that folks use to import data, whether they're importing new data, whether they're updating data, upserting records, so adding more information onto an existing record, which could also be a kind of like updating that's just a little bit different. So the first tool that people use, which Salesforce provides, is the data import wizard. And that's great because it's really easy to update data. You just need the email address, the company name, and you can use those two things to update all of the information, obviously, and upload new data into the system as well. You are limited, with that said, to 50,000 records per upload. So the other tool, the second tool, is called Data Loader. So Data Loader is great because you can still update, you can still obviously upload new information, you can upsert information as well. But in order to do so most effectively, or in order to do so in general, for the updating and upserting, you're going to need a Salesforce ID, which means that if it's not already in Salesforce, like let's just say that you're looking to update or upsert, you'll need the Salesforce ID so that you don't create duplicates, because it does not check for duplicates. The value for going with something like that is if you have a larger data set. So you can actually upload up to 5 million records at once, which is super powerful if you're migrating from one CRM to Salesforce. With that said, you're going to want to make sure that you do have those proper systems in place, those processes in place, to make sure that if you are uploading data that would be a duplicate, that it would flag that, and that you would be able to monitor that. And you would usually do that by setting up different workflows and validation rules and whatnot. It's usually safe to just know what data that you're uploading and that it's not going to create duplicates. And if you do, we also we're also able to identify that through some proprietary technology that we have, some duplicate management technology. But with that said, that's the main difference between the two. So next we'll go over reports and dashboards management. So going back to the implementation project of the growth-focused private equity fund, all of that granular investor information was aggregated and organized into easily digestible reports, and then we created corresponding dashboards off of those reports so that they could determine things like investment opportunity pipeline, in this case, which showed them which types of investors have the highest propensity to invest and or co-invest. We did have the co-invest interest checkbox field that we created, as well as the co-investment details description box that we created. So with that said, you're also able to see things like pipeline viscosity. So which types of investors are investing, what the level of investment and dollar amount they're looking at or that they've committed, and then how that's trended over time, which is called a pipeline viscosity. So on the y-axis, you have the dollar amount. The bars are going to segment in a color-coordinated fashion all of the different stages of their investment commitment, and then on the x-axis, you're going to have the time frame, which is really cool to be able to identify that. And in the report and in the dashboard even, you can drill down on these things, which is super powerful, because what was otherwise scattered across multiple Excel spreadsheets or perhaps multiple databases is now consolidated into one place, and it just lives in your reports and dashboards objects in Salesforce. And for companies, it's the same thing. So, you're working X amount of companies. You want to know on the y-axis what the dollar amount is, with the bar charts that are going to be separated by stage and color coordinated by stage. And then you'll also have, either the monthly or the quarterly timeline on the x-axis. So it's just a great way to get a visual representation of where you're at or where your team's at in your sales cycle. So now we're going to go over the integrations piece. There's actually 7 different types of integrations that one should carefully consider when deciding how information is going to flow in and out of your Salesforce org. And there's 2 forms of communication as well. There's one-way communication and there's bidirectional communication. So an example of one-way communication would be if you're an investment vehicle and you want to use Standard & Poor's Capital IQ to get information such as company revenue and EBITDA, for example. So you would obviously download the S&P Capital IQ app on the App Exchange, and we could set that up for you. And that would be an example of S&P Capital IQ talking to Salesforce, which is one way. Another, we actually worked on a few projects to date where folks were using HubSpot, and they wanted HubSpot to talk to Salesforce, and they wanted Salesforce to talk to HubSpot, which is great, and we absolutely were able to do that. But that's actually called bidirectional communication. Now, to go over briefly the 7 different forms, it was really 6, but I guess you could say 7 different forms of integration. First, you have batch integration, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a great way to update data in seconds, or you can even schedule it for weeks out if you want. You can delay it for several weeks. And it's best for companies that are dealing with data that changes infrequently, so that doesn't change often. And it's also a great solution for processing flat files. Second, you have near real-time integration, which can also take place in seconds or minutes, or you can delay it if you'd like. And it typically is used when data needs to flow, relatively quickly, but also it's not going to be a disaster if it takes a few extra seconds, to upload. It's easier to implement, I would say, than real-time integration, and is used mostly for things like order confirmation for customers and whatnot. Thirdly, you have real-time integration. Now, some folks believe that this is an absolute must-have. So real-time integration is most commonly, I would say, used for something like a marketing campaign when you're trying to track email open rates for a call blitz. So you want to make sure that your reps are hitting someone as soon as they open that email, because that would indicate that they're at their desk. For example, that's one way that you might use real-time integration. Another way is for a bank, for example, when a bank would need real-time, like true real-time integration to issue authorizations for credit card purchases. That's when we've noticed that folks would need such an integration. The fourth one is just using something, an app off the App Exchange. So using these, canned apps can actually reduce the time and obviously expenses, of integration, over creating the integration from scratch. And they're relatively easy to use. Plus, all of the support and future enhancements are really on the vendor, so you don't have to worry about those as well. With that said, be careful, because that can actually become a roadblock at certain times with these updates from Salesforce as they relate to updates with the app. But usually it's not too much of a problem. And then you have real-time applications. So this actually requires building a user interface, a UI, in Visualforce, which is the standard Salesforce framework for developing custom UI. It operates just like a web app. One has call outs to retrieve data from external systems and also complex flows, and that's all possible from this form of integration. The sixth form is using the Force.com canvas. This will allow developers, in our case divs, to use a JavaScript SDK that's developed by Salesforce to embed an existing web app directly into a Salesforce page. For example, you might want to integrate current sales stats that are living in an ERP onto an account page in Salesforce. With the Force.com canvas, this is possible. And lastly, there are other types of mashups allowing developers to embed existing third-party web pages within your user interface, your UI, such as business intelligent BI apps. So you can do that as well. And that's pretty much all I have for you as it relates to integrations. I suppose the last piece really is the email integration. We won't spend too much time on this at all. Simply put, Salesforce has seamless integration with both Outlook as well as Gmail, and it lives actually right in your Outlook, or it lives right in your Gmail. So while you're about to email someone, it'll match up to their particular contact record, and you can just log it obviously directly because it's integrated. You can log it directly to Salesforce. It just plugs right in there. But what's really cool is you can also add a new task. Or if you're on the phone with them, for example, you can also log a call in real time. So that's a pretty cool tool. So next we'll go over our managed services. A lot of folks just want to have someone at their disposal all of the time to make sure that their org is intact. And we can absolutely help you with that. The value for using a managed service, someone like ourselves, on an ongoing basis, is it really cuts down on costs. Meaning you won't have to, pay someone's salary. You won't have to pay for someone's, health insurance. You don't have to pay for phone lines, any real estate, costs that you would incur otherwise. That's obviously all covered, and all you have to do is, use this on a monthly basis. With that said, we also offer training. So, with that said, we also offer training. We also offer training, so a lot of folks are asking for lightning training, which is fantastic. It is quite different in terms of the user interface. There are some things that are in different places that are kind of catching people off guard. So we can absolutely help you with that. In fact, we have some promotions going on right now, which we will cover in the investment schedule, which is the next slide. But if you would like, obviously, lightning training, we can absolutely help you with that. But also, if you would like more technical hands-on training to become an administrator or to become a developer or an architect, we can absolutely help you with that as well. So as you can see, you can hire a developer for $64 an hour. or an administrator for 40 an hour for the first 25 hours. And that's down from 94 and 54 respectively. And if you were looking for, to bring someone on board on a monthly basis, that's going to be 8,400 for a developer and 4,800 for an administrator. Once again, these are just end of Q1 2020 promotional rates that we have running right now. We'd absolutely love to work with you, so do reach out to us if this is an area of interest for you. And we'll also help you out with lightning training. So that's 500 for lightning training for the first 3 users, 100 per user after that, and then that's down from 1,500. And then our one-on-one technical training starts at 2,000 for admin training and kind of goes up if you're looking to become a developer or a consultant or an architect from there. I suppose, when I'm looking to hire contractors, it really makes me think of, the old Chinese proverb, which is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. If you have a few things or several things that you would consider quite little at the moment in your Salesforce org that you believe could use improvement, just realize that over time, or even perhaps right now, all of these little things can collectively turn into a big problem. That's the last thing that you want to happen. So, make sure you reach out to us today. We can give you a free, no commitment assessment of your Salesforce org. We'll provide you, at the very least with some recommendations of what you might want to consider doing. And then if you'd like, we can use the first project as a pilot and I guess you could say a test run or a jumping off point and working together. And then, we can develop a relationship from there. So we hope to hear from you. My contact information is right here to the left. You can reach me by phone, by email. You have my Skype, you have my Telegram. So I officially have no way of hiding from you. So feel free to reach out today and we will get you all squared away. All right, thanks so much. Have a good one.